We're about to begin. Can I have everybody's attention? Thank you. Today, the legislature, in partnership with Governor Newsom, continues its work to protect consumers from price gouging at the gas pump. I'm proud to author AB X2-1 alongside Majority Leader Aguilar Curry, Senator Skinner, and our many co-authors. Since the governor convened this special session on August 31st, the legislature has engaged in more than 20 hours of robust discussions and hearings to thoroughly vet the CEC's proposal. We acted swiftly and thoughtfully to craft a bill that empowers the CEC to provide Californians with much-needed relief at the gas pump. This bill reflects a strong collaborative effort with both houses of the legislature and the administration. I believe the policy we have before us today is stronger than when we started. It prioritizes worker safety, protects frontline communities, and benefits the public interest. The data is clear. Price spikes happen when refineries fail to plan for supply during scheduled maintenance. This bill will hold oil companies accountable for resupply plans when refineries shutdowns occur, ultimately saving Californians billions at the pump. And crucially, any regulations will only move forward if they lower gasoline prices for consumers. This landmark legislation is a win for consumers, a win for accountability in the state's gasoline market. AB X2-1 will save California working families billions at the gas pump. This common sense solution has received broad public support because consumers know that when gas prices spike in California, the oil industry unfairly profits. Thank you, Governor Newsom, Speaker Rivas, Pro Tem McGuire, and Attorney General Bonta for your hard work to deliver this crucial and timely consumer protection. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Assembly Majority Leader Cecilia Aguilar Curry.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Senator Skinner and Assemblymember Hart. AB X2-1 was the subject of extensive amount of scrutiny, testimony, and participation by members of the legislature in over 18 hours of hearings. The bill clearly states that no regulation will move forward unless there is a tangible benefit to the California gas consumers and that the safety of our refinery workers and the public is paramount in any action taken by the state. I want to thank the Assembly Policy Chair, Assemblymember Petrie Norris, who worked hours to make sure we did this policy right, as well as my colleagues and co-joint authors, Assemblymember Hart and Senator Skinner, for all their work on this. We look forward to partnering with the administration to make absolutely sure that the regulatory process delivers the gas for consumers and holds the safety workers and public as a primary value. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our joint author is Senator Skinner.
Thank you, Majority Leader Aguilar Curry, and thank you, Assemblymember Hart. I'm very proud to be here for the signing of a landmark law that is the first of its kind in the nation. AB X2-1, as my colleagues have so far mentioned, will avoid those days when we have seen the price of a gallon of gas in California spike by upwards to 50 and 75 cents, costing our households $10 or more each time they go to the pump. We need to save Californians much needed money, and that's the purpose of this bill. I'm also proud to have authored last year's SB X12, another first in the nation law that created strong transparency measures so that the Energy Commission could collect the data they needed about the gasoline market. Last year's bill gave the Energy Commission the authority to collect that data, and they were able to determine that the leading cause of these 50 to 75 cents price spikes was the failure of our oil refineries to maintain adequate gas supplies when they shut down for maintenance or during those crucial high-demand driving times from Memorial Day to Labor Day. I want to thank Governor Newsom for pushing us to act. And I want to thank him for signing this bill, which will allow our Energy Commission to coordinate refinery maintenance and, if needed, require a minimum supply of refined product to be on hand at our refineries. And believe me, that's not new, because during winter months, what the CEC's data shows is that it's routine that our refineries keep that much supply on hand. They also kept more than what is projected we might need on hand during the pandemic. So today's signing demonstrates that California has the courage to lead when it comes to protecting consumers from market manipulation and high prices. And I want to thank the leaders of both of our houses, Speaker Rivas and Pro Tem McGuire, and my other co-authors, and our sponsor, Attorney General Bonta, for their leadership in this effort, and of course, the Energy Commission for bringing us the data that enabled us to craft this bill and deliver this relief to Californians. And now I would like to introduce Attorney General Rob Bonta, sponsor of the bill.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. Honored to be here with my incredible colleagues here, working together with one voice, taking action on behalf of Californians. It was an honor to be able to sponsor this bill, ABX 21. We also sponsored at the California Department of Justice, my office, SBX 12 last year. And I want to say thank you to our authors for their boldness, Assembly Members Hart and Aguilar Curry, Senator Skinner, for pushing these bills through the process. I want to say also thank you to the entire legislature for committing to a special session, to working overtime on behalf of the people of California. I know that's not something that is taken lightly, but thank you for stepping up for the people, as you did here. A special shout out to to Pro Tem McGuire, as well as Speaker Rivas for your leadership in both houses, and of course to our governor, who in so many ways and in so many actions has lifted up equity and affordability for Californians time and time again, and this is just the latest manifestation. So thank you to the team who got us here, who put this together, got us across the finish line. And I want to say thank you for focusing on everyday Californians. When we think about this issue, we have to think about everyday folks who are just trying to get to work, who are trying to take their children to school, who are driving to visit a loved one they may not have seen in some time, or just doing their normal activities of daily living. That has a cost to it. And the people of this state are fed up with price spikes, price volatility, market manipulation that leads to avoidable, unfair, unjust price spikes for them. They have enough costs as it is, and we are here to say we are going to deliver relief. We see you, we hear you, we value you. We are taking action to make sure that when there are avoidable gas price spikes, we are taking action. And certainly when it comes to adequate supply and inventory, that can really make a difference for everyday folks. So everyday Californians are fed up with price spikes. The people here, including me, are fed up with gas price spikes and unnecessary spikes to people's pocketbooks, and so we're taking action and saying no more. I want to be really clear about one thing. When there are gas price spikes at the pump, there are also spikes in big oil's profits. They are absolutely connected, and it is avoidable. We can do better, we can be fairer, we can be more just, and I want to say thank you to the whole team delivering to the people of California today. Today is a good day for the people of this state, and I'm grateful for the leadership that I get to stand with today. Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce our great Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I know myself and my colleagues behind me, we're excited to get out of here. Our session ended on August 31st, and so this is exciting day for us. But, when we began this special session, my Assembly colleagues and I, we felt very strongly about two goals. The first was taking the time to thoroughly vet legislation to get the policy right. Second was making sure that Californians, residents that we all represent, that they had a strong voice in this process. Having gavelled down and convened this special session on August 31st, I can say that we've achieved these two goals. Through this legislation, Assembly Bill X21, we will continue to hold oil companies accountable to further stabilize gas prices. As we know, past gas price spikes have cost Californians an estimated some $2 billion a year. And that, as we know, can't go on. This is why the Assembly and Senate heard more than 20 hours of testimony and some related discussion, and why we got extensive community and stakeholder input. And that process made this legislation stronger, as you've already heard. It includes robust protections for Californians and consumers. For our workers, their safety and involvement is now prioritized. Some communities will not be impacted by the development or construction of new refinery storage. We are holding big oil companies responsible to increase stability for prices at the pump. And that's what I expect, and I think that's what all Californians deserve. And I'm proud of the work we've done, and there's no shortage of individuals to recognize. All of my colleagues standing behind me, both in the Assembly and in the Senate, who worked very hard throughout this special session, and I want to personally thank all of them. I want to thank Assemblymember Greg Hart, our Majority Leader in the Assembly, Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, co-authors on this legislation for us in the Assembly. Greg and Cecilia scrutinized this new law, listened to legislators and to members of the public, to stakeholders, and they secured important protections for workers and for consumers. I want to thank our Special Session Committee Chair, Ms. Kati Petrie-Norris, who unfortunately is not here. She approached this work with seriousness, with rigor, to ensure that this new law achieves its intended outcomes. But that's not the last you'll hear from her. You'll continue to hear from her on this issue, in this policy, in this bill. To Pro Tem Mike McGuire, and our colleagues in the Senate, we worked very well together on this, and we certainly worked together to make this legislature stronger for everyone here in our state. And again, to our governor, Mr. Newsom, as you know, Mr. Governor, I appreciate the collaboration always, your drive, your resolve when it comes to taking on these incredibly tough issues. So thank you. And again, our work is not over. I look forward to being right back here in a few weeks with many of my colleagues standing behind me, where we look forward to ensure that we continue to prioritize addressing California's cost of living and improving the day-to-day quality of life for every resident of this state. So lucky to call California home. And with that, I want to invite our colleague, that is Pro Tem McGuire, up here. Mr. Pro Tem.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much to Speaker Rivas for his partnership, and just to say to the Speaker, truly appreciate you in our work together. I also want to acknowledge Assemblymember Hart. Thank you so much, Assemblymember, of course, the Majority Leader Aguiar-Curry, for your leadership. I'd like to acknowledge Senator Skinner as well for her work on this critical bill now and in all of the previous months. To the three of you, thank you. To all of our colleagues who are here today from the Assembly and Senate, we are grateful. As the Speaker and I were talking about again this morning, we're going to continue. We're going to continue to grind away to help lower the cost of living for folks in every corner of the Golden State. Whether the issue is fuel prices, energy bills, the cost of home insurance, know that it is top of mind for the two of us. It's top of mind for our colleagues who are gathered here and in the chambers, and of course to our Governor Gavin Newsom. This is a top priority for him now and well into the future. Here's what we know about this bill. ABX 2-1 is all about lowering the cost of prices at the pump. Lowering gas prices here in California is never bad policy. And this bill sets the stage to ease gas price spikes and provide additional certainty through enhanced storage and oversight. Californians, I firmly believe Californians are tired of the price spikes, and they're smart enough. They're smart enough to see through the gaslighting and threats when it comes to this bill. The bill Governor Newsom is going to sign into law in just a few moments will help protect Californians. It's going to lead to predictability at the pump and help keep Californians hang on to those hard-earned dollars. So, without further ado, I think it's time to get it done. I'm going to turn the podium over to the man with the pen. I would now like to bring up the 40th governor of the great state of California, ladies and gentlemen, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Why don't we get it done? Let's go over there. As we reassemble, let me just express my gratitude to everybody that is reassembling behind me, to everybody that assembled 45 or so days ago in this special session. We don't enter into special sessions lightly. I know how challenging these experiences are for all of us, but notably for those that are entrusted to advance that process. So let me start by expressing deep gratitude to the Pro Tem and the Speaker that have been extraordinary partners since they've ascended into their respective roles across a myriad of issues, but have been particularly supportive of the process that ultimately unfolded here. We can get consumed by the circulinear nature of that process unfolding, but there was no question in my mind, there was no doubt in my mind that we would be back here as we were a year or so ago in advancing the cause that we had advanced with the original special session. I made this point a year ago, I'll make it again today, and it's in the spirit of what the Pro Tem just said. Success as it relates to addressing the issue of prices in this state, gas prices in particular, is not a process or rather a destination itself, meaning there is no having made it. It's something that unfolds over the period of time. There's humility in that process. There's a deep understanding that this is not the final word as it relates to the issue of gas prices in the state of California, quite the contrary. But what we were able to do last year allowed us to see underneath the proverbial tent, to look in and rather insert a point of view, to truly understand and validate a point of view, and ultimately understand that one of the principal issues that was holding back our capacity to tame these price spikes was the issue around supply, issues around maintenance, issues around refineries. And we're here today because of the progress we made a year or so ago. And that progress continues now with the CEC. Remember, this bill basically now allows for a secondary process to unfold at the California Energy Commission to assess this market, to consider what those supply demands are, to consider all the health and human service issues that were brought up during these 20 hours of testimony, to bring up worker safety issues, to bring up the concerns that were expressed around costs, indirect or direct, to expose a lot of the mistruths and manipulation on the other side, particularly WISPA and their talking points, and big oil that knowingly continues to lie to the people of this state, our nation, for that matter, around the world. They are the polluted heart of this climate crisis. They continue to lie, and they continue to manipulate. And they're taking advantage of you. And this should be universal. Universal. 37 million gallons a day are purchased in the state of California, and they have been raking in unprecedented profits because they can, because they take advantage of you. They take advantage of emotion. They take advantage of the fact they have a massive economic advantage. They buy their manipulation. Politicians, industry groups, front groups, organizations that are created out of thin air, dark money that they put in, and they've been fleecing you for decades and decades, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Hardworking people, just as the speaker said, just trying to make ends meet, get to work, take care of their kids, and they're screwing you. They've been screwing you for years and years and years. There's no other way to put it. You can't sugarcoat this. And they lied again over the course of the last few weeks, and they'll continue to lie. And what I'm so proud of is that we stood up. We didn't step back. Everybody here had the courage of their convictions, and they stood tall, and it wasn't easy. I mean, we saw what happened here. You see it over and over and over and over again. You see it all across the country, but what you don't see happening across the country is the kind of courage that these folks behind me demonstrated. So to the authors, Assemblymember Hart, Aguilar Curry, Senator Skinner, and every one of the folks that were entrusted in this special session to stand tall, to ask the tough questions. Thank you for asking the tough questions. To stress test this idea. Thank you for having the backs of hardworking people in this state. It's about time. Big oil does not have your back, period. Full stop. This is not complicated. It's right and wrong. Been lying to you year in, year out. Price of crude oil goes down. There's no increase in taxes. You're seeing gas prices drop across the rest of the country, but spike in California. And they buy all these ads saying somehow it's Californians' fault. They've been manipulating you. They've been lying to you. They've been playing you over and over and over again. And every single one of you, every single person reporting on this, every single person in front of the camera, behind the camera, you have been screwed by these companies. Not complicated. And forgive me for being so pointed. It's exhausting. And what's also exhausting, with all due respect, I was walking with my kids yesterday out there on the coast in Inverness. And, we're trying to explain a little bit of what just happened in Florida over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. This is all connected. It's not complex. Places, lifestyles, tradition. We had an ex-president of the United States threatening once again firefighters, emergency response, just down in Southern California just 48 hours ago, threatening with a related cost. Talk about, again, a polluted mindset. And I don't know, you couldn't pay me enough to regurgitate the talking points of WISPA. The hell, why do people need to do that? Don't they care about their kids and grandkids, our future? Places, lifestyles, tradition. Ask the folks in Grizzly Flats in Greenville, California. I don't have to remind you of Paradise, California. Unprecedented heat waves every single damn year. Wake up. Talk about costs. They don't pay a damn penny as they socialize that pollution and that burden on generations. I think that former same president wanted $1 billion. That's all we need, just $1 billion. He'll roll back all these regulations. That's how corrupt our system has become. And again, why I'm so damn proud of the folks in this rotunda, in this room right now. So to every single one of you, I know this wasn't easy. I know it was a pain. I can only imagine the stuff you said behind my back. But I honestly think this is a point of pride, and it's a point of privilege that we had this opportunity, and we stood up. Let's not overstate this. Let's not overpromise here. Again, process that unfolds over time. But it's about time. It's about time we stood up. And I'll close on this. This is the 4th largest market in the world. This is a big damn deal. We're not some small isolated state. 4th largest market in the world, right behind the United States, China, and Brazil. This is a big deal. And as was stated before, this is, I think Senator Skinner said it, a model for the nation. And I'll just close on that in the spirit of, the Greeks. We do not imitate. We're proud, for we are a model to others. With that, we're here to answer any questions. Thank you all. Thank you, guys.
And Mr. Governor, good afternoon. It's Eitan Wallace here with 8 Next Star stations across California. First of all, thank you to those who are here, who have shared their perspectives with us at the news business over the last few weeks. We appreciate you sharing that with me on camera. I really do appreciate to some of you, so thank you. Speaking of those here, I see folks representing everywhere from Winters, San Diego, everywhere north. And we have heard it. We have heard some of the criticism here. Just bear with me for a moment, then I'll get your response. Everybody from Chevron to even some fellow Democrats to the governors of Nevada and Arizona who are concerned that this will actually increase prices. So the reason I started by asking about folks in Winters and the folks in Berkeley and wherever else, can you guarantee to them, unlike what we've heard from the governors of Arizona and Nevada and some in the oil industry, that this will lower their gas prices?
Well, let me correct in respect. I know you're referring to a letter that we received from the governors of Nevada and Arizona. I just want to follow up that we've had follow-up conversations with both those governors and their administrations. They expressed only concerns, and understandably so, because the impacts on those gas price spikes here in California impact their taxpayers directly. I'll remind you, just 2 years ago, it was $2.61 above the national average. Last year it was $2.55 above the national average, at a time when global crude prices had stabilized or declined. We saw a spike increase of $2.61. That absolutely concerns people in Nevada and in Arizona. And so what I can say to them is now we have the tools, and we're providing a process where the CEC will deeply analyze all the considerations and concerns, do the cost-benefit analysis, and provide a tool that has not existed in the past to actually address those spikes. And I would suggest this. I do think it's interesting, and I'm not suggesting causation here, but it is interesting that this year we did not see the kind of price spikes that we saw in the last 2 years. I just think that's interesting. I leave that to your more objective analysis. We now have the ability to address those price spikes. I don't want to overstate, I don't want to overpromise, but we now have the tools.
Thank you, Governor. Sophie Austin with the Associated Press. Some lawmakers have expressed concerns about how, even though you all are taking action today aimed at preventing gas prices from spiking, that CARB will soon make updates to the low carbon fuel standard, which could raise overall gas prices. What do you say to those concerns?
Well, there's no evidence that there's any correlation between the credits, LCFS, and the cost of gasoline, period, full stop. That's a process that's unfolding in real time. Public comment, they're engaging folks. They've already made a number of amendments as it relates to their original proposal, and independent CARB will make that determination. LCFS, by the way, has been supported by a lot of the groups that opposed last year's special session and opposed this bill, which is important to note, and I think is important for readers to understand. Number two, it's also been a huge benefit to the taxpayers of the state of California. I mean, look at specifically what's happened now with diesel and renewable diesel. Look at the health benefits just associated with that. Look at the cost benefits under LCFS. It's one of the most significant environmental proposals that was advanced in this state in the last quarter century, and it's being replicated around the rest of the country and around the rest of the world for a reason. So I would just assess all of that in the context of those new concerns that we just started to see up on our TV set as they started to throw every conceivable argument against this effort, and they were falling flat, so they decided to move to a totally new target. We'll have plenty of time to discuss that as it unfolds, but it's in an iterative process as it relates to the final proposal, and that's months away.
Hi, Governor. Ashley Zavala with KCRA 3. I am going to follow up on that LCFS question just because...
You guys have already moved off this.
No. Well, it's in an attempt to be able to explain to California drivers just to level set their expectations at the pump as this rulemaking process begins. The LCFS process is underway, as you have said, but in less than a month, they're scheduled to vote on that.
Yep.
And CARB, at the moment, the LA Times reported last week that they're not providing an update to the estimate that it might cost consumers. And I reached out to CARB on Friday. I have yet to hear back. I asked them, is that true? Do you not plan on publicly updating people on what the potential cost at the pump could be? So do you think it's fair to California drivers for people to not know what those LCFS standards mean at the pump?
Well, LCFS is not a brand new construct. It's been well established for years and years and years and years. There's a process that's consistent to the process they've had in the past. They put up some estimates. They put up updated estimates, so they have been transparent in that respect. To the degree that they should provide more, I'm for more transparency, absolutely, from that perspective. So to answer your question, I think more is better. I mean, that's the spirit of this special session. It's the spirit of why I'm here today signing this bill. But I do think it's important to talk about the substance and the merits of LCFF and how it's made a big impact on our low-carbon green growth agenda in the state of California. It's helped to pave the way to having 7 times more green-collar jobs than we have fossil fuel jobs. I'll repeat that, 7x more jobs in this sector. It's one of the reasons guys like Elon Musk and others have become so damn successful. Is because we've set price signals, we've created markets, we've created opportunities for investment. We're the #1 manufacturer in the state for a reason. We continue to be the envy of the world in these policies, and LCFS is a big, big part of that.
Just to quickly clarify, so you're the boss.
Well, I'm not the dictator.
Well, but will you direct CARB?
Just ask the Coastal Commission.
Will you direct CARB then to provide an estimate before that vote?
I think it's important to be, I think you heard exactly what I said. I'll repeat it. I think it's important to be transparent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Governor. Laura Fitzgerald with Capitol Public Radio. So some experts definitely agree that, economic experts agree that this will lower gas prices for Californians, but only if implementation is taken very seriously after regulations are adopted.
Siva, you're going to take this seriously? Or you guys are, yeah. All right. Forgive me, I just want to acknowledge the seriousness of purpose.
Sure. Sure. So thanks for that. So one that I spoke with is particularly concerned about the lack of resources for the Division of Petroleum Market Oversight, and that this legislation doesn't specifically augment that division's budget. And I guess I'm wondering if that's something that you hope to revisit in the next few months, or if you see any concerns with that.
I'll just answer this by saying we'll do what needs to be done to make sure that we have the appropriate resources to make real the commitments we're promoting here today.
Thanks.
Absolutely. And I didn't mean to be flippant about the CC. These guys mean business. Ty, this is next level expert. And thank you. Siva and Ty, this wouldn't have happened without you guys. These guys, the crown jewels of this effort. And Lauren, Sanchez, Christine in my office, and the whole team, they take this very, very seriously. Billions and billions of dollars out of the pockets of hardworking Californians. What a gift it is to be able to finally rein these abuses in, and we look forward. I know every member of this legislature looks forward to making sure that what they just empowered the CEC to do, they do, and they do it in the spirit that was demanded of this legislation. Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Thank you. Wes Van Tyscher with Politico. You talked about the continuing influence of WISPA and the oil industry here in the Capitol and its long-standing role. Does the passage of this legislation reflect a change in that? Has the landscape changed, or is this kind of a one-off victory in that
Well,
regard?
I wish they'd start using some of the lobbying. I can't wait for one of you to figure out how much money they spent on this latest effort. I wish they'd give that to the victims still recovering in Paradise. I wish they'd provide that aid to the folks in the Gulf, Southeast Florida. I wish they'd stop running misleading ads that gin up the previous two questions. Legitimate questions, by the way, but gin them up. And gin up people's anxieties. And so I'll leave, I'm the most subjective person, one of them in this room, when it comes to them. I've had enough. And by the way, I drove here. I'm not naive. I'm going to be on an airplane tomorrow, I think. This is not binary. I'm so sick of those sort of stale old arguments. Oh, you use gas. Well, everybody uses gas. That's why we want people to stop getting ripped off. I don't want to get ripped off. That's what this is about. You shouldn't want to get ripped off. Your editors shouldn't want to get ripped off. So, look, I wish they would just start playing by the rules. And, you got an attorney general here that knows better than anybody. They haven't been. Dead to right. Been lying and manipulating ExxonMobil for decades and decades. That's why I called them the polluted heart of the climate crisis. I didn't just throw that out. I didn't call Chat GPT from my talking points. I wish they'd stop. They got kids. I know they care about the forest, some of them. I wish they'd start to realize the impact they've had, the manipulation, the lies. The reason we haven't transitioned as fast as we have is because they've been lying about the technology, been lying to people about the costs for decades and decades. So, again, I wish they'd change their approach in the spirit of your question, because it clearly is not working for them, and their past practices have not been working for our state and nation and the world. Thank you.
Governor Stephen Hobbs from the Sacramento Bee, you alluded to the comments of Donald Trump over the weekend just about, aid for, with emergency aid for the state if California doesn't defer more water, and also just that he would cancel California's 2035 mandate on new car sales. So just want to get your response to those comments.
He's more unhinged than he's ever been. He's more derivative, boring. He is more boring than he's ever been. I don't know what more to say. And he's more un-American than any nominee for president in my lifetime.
Antonio Harvey, California Black Media Governor. Just a couple of weeks ago, Assembly Minority Leader James Gallagher had considered only way to make these gas prices go down to install more storage facilities and maybe pipelines. I just want to know, did you have that conversation with him, and was that?
No, I haven't had a conversation with him in quite some time after we went out of our way to make sure we were there. As always, doesn't matter what part of the state, to have a backs to the people in his district that were impacted by exactly the issue that brings us here today, by the burning of fossil fuels, by the burning of coal, natural gas, and oil. It's not complicated. That's what greenhouse gases are. And so I appreciate his willingness to engage, and I look forward to any good idea being not only expressed, but I'm open to argument, interested in evidence, and perhaps this is a segue. There was a discussion around E15, which is an important conversation that we had between the houses. I think that's an area of exploration. Of course, CARB is already going through a process in that space, but I think it's another example of goodwill, regardless of your political stripes, where people participated and engaged. And so I'm hopeful we'll see more of that in the future. Thank you.
Governor Steve Large, CBS 13, thanks for your time. You talked a little bit earlier about how difficult it was to get to this point politically with your colleagues there at legislature. Today, you required 41 votes to get this bill passed. You got 42, a very slim majority. What kind of political message does that send to California?
I don't have that capacity of objectivity. I just know this is a legislature that gets it and gets things done. These are leaders that get it and get things done, and care about the people of this state and don't want to see people continue to get fleeced and ripped off. And today they did something big to advance that effort. And I'm just proud of them and proud of this state and what it represents. And, you know, to that last, you know, the question prior as it relates to Donald Trump, God help us. If he makes his way back into the White House, we're going to need every single damn one of these folks to stand tall and stand firm and push back against his agenda.
Hi, Governor. Daniela Pardo with Spectrum News. As you know, the number one concern for voters is the cost of living, everything being so expensive. And so this legislature had the opportunity to listen to other proposals that would provide immediate relief to drivers, such as suspending the gas tax or exempting transportation fuels from the cap-and-trade program. You know the rest, but they only passed your proposal. So what is your message to California drivers that won't see relief for a while because Democrats blocked other efforts? This was a profound and consequential effort to reduce the costs for working people in the state of California, and we just succeeded in advancing that effort. They failed yet again to succeed in cutting the spigot on some $7.1 billion of investment in infrastructure. That's what they called for when it comes to the gas tax. By the way, a gas tax that, by the way, there's no guarantee the savings would be passed through to consumers. And they had no mechanism to answer that simple and obvious question. So I'm glad that was rejected. It's become increasingly a cynical play. And the consequences are outsized in terms of the concerns also expressed by California, which is the quality of their life and infrastructure, and roads, bridges, and the like. So again, I thought the most interesting conversation was in the E15 space. It's a familiar one because, as I said, we have a process that's already unfolding in that space. And there are other proposals that, you know, had marginal amendments that were made in, but this was a special session with a special purpose and a focus. And we have that opportunity in January to consider all these other proposals. Just a quick follow-up, because you said it's not the end-all, be-all, but again, for drivers that want relief now, what do you tell those people that are hurting?
Well, I think we tell them that we mean business. California is trying to tame this beast. And the burden this beast has placed upon 40 million Californians. And we were successful to do so as it relates to the price gouging we've seen and experienced in this state. It's demonstrable. It's not asserted. It's realized every time you go to the pump. Again, gas prices going down in other parts of the country, going up here, and there was no legislative action that was taken to increase the costs of gasoline. That's a manipulation, and that's what we're trying to expose, and that's what we're trying to address in this legislation. As it relates to cost of living, I could give you a myriad of things this legislature just did on healthcare, education, and the environment, ignorance, poverty, and disease across the spectrum. I can give you chapter and verse on what we're doing, creating our own brand of naloxone, creating our own brand of insulin, not subsidizing costs, fundamentally lowering costs. I could talk about all the subsidies we're providing in a myriad of areas, not least of which child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, the work we're doing to subsidize the cost of health care, the work we're doing to set new price signals and targets through the Office of Healthcare Affordability. I literally can spend another 25 minutes, give me a subject matter, as it relates to the issues of cost of living, and I'm proud of every single one of these folks for being a big part of that. Thank you.
Alexi Casa from Cal Matters. Shortly before the start of this press conference, your office released a video criticizing the oil industry for trying to scare voters into voting for Donald Trump. What did you mean by that? And is this proposal intended as political punishment for an industry that took a position in this presidential election that you disagree with?
I think you're aware in the last few years we have pursued accountability and transparency as it relates to the oil industry. Predates any election. We have advanced that cause here in the second year as it relates to the second special session. As it relates to Donald Trump,
I think my positions relate to former President Donald Trump are well established and very consistent, including the comments that I tend to share on almost a daily basis, including, apparently, a video that you just watched.
So what does the oil industry's supposed support for President Trump have to do with this proposal, and why mention it in the video?
I think when a former president of the United States asked for $1 billion, $1 billion in a room of oil industry executives to roll back your regulations, I think that should scare the hell out of you. And it sure as hell scares the hell out of me.
This one is not for you. This one is for legislators.
My gosh, I appreciate that.
Today, you guys said the bill provides relief to consumers, and I think we heard that same thing last year when you guys were here celebrating the last special session. And again, this gives some of your power to state regulators to actually potentially lower gas prices in the future. But for people who are struggling with affordability right now, how does this bill help them in this moment?
Well, I think the governor made the point that we are not experiencing the gas price spike that we have experienced for the past 2 years, which is a substantial savings to consumers today. People would be paying at the pump if the industry had increased prices on consumers right now. But I don't think it's a coincidence that because of this legislation and what we've been doing for the past 6 weeks and the attention that all of California has had on this issue, that we have been protecting consumers. And I know that Vice Chair Gunda and Director Mulder are hard at work to make this implemented as fast as possible to make sure that next season, when we have the potential for another spike, that we're in a position to protect California consumers as well.
What I found fascinating is you never heard the industry. WISPA never said, they never denied price spikes. They never came before any of our hearings or any of their talking points and said, oh, there have never been price spikes. They never said that. This bill is about trying to get at those price spikes. Fortunately, maybe our bully pulpit and the fact that we first had a transparency law, the first law that Governor Newsom brought to us in that special session of a year ago, maybe getting that data, and with the good commission and the division's work, getting that data that showed that it was some of their manipulations, either by having all their refineries do their maintenance at the same time in the midst of when we drove the most, or just not keeping the same supply in the summer as they do in the winter, because the data shows they keep a large amount of supply in the winter. Maybe that, even though they wouldn't talk about it, kind of, made them change their talking points a bit. So instead, what they were saying is, oh, well, this measure might cause the prices to go up because you might have to build more supply. Well, if you notice, the bill says that we will maximize existing supply, and the data shows that they have the supply because in the winter, they keep that level of refined gasoline on hand. So, anyway, we'll see what happens.
This one is for you. Your own administration, Governor, has said that this bill could increase costs at the pump, although it's unclear how much that would be, and it's one of the considerations for future implementation. In an election year, does this help or hurt Democratic lawmakers in swing districts? And does this help or hurt Harris in swing states?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'm just not a political pundit. And I think politicians make suboptimal political pundits. I'm out there making a case for common sense and a new approach, and I'll just leave it at that.
So in an election year, you don't have any thoughts on whether this helps Democratic legislators or Kamala Harris either?
I think it helps millions and millions of hardworking folks that, regardless of their political, it's not about politics. I mean, this is literally about you and me. It's about everybody. I don't like bullies, Trump, and I don't like people screwing other people, taking advantage of them. I don't. That's my why. Why did I do this is why I'm here. I care deeply about the folks in red rural California as much as I do with folks in blue California. I'm not wired like some of these other people. Talking down to people, talking past people. Some of the biggest beneficiaries of this are Trump supporters. I'm not naive about that, and that's great. I care about people. That's what this is about. So honestly, with respect, I appreciate the political question, but that's not what this was ever about. Wasn't about that a year ago. It wasn't about that a few months ago when we initiated this process. It's about you and me. It's about everybody. And it's about holding, unaccountable folks to a little bit of account. That's it. It's not even complicated. It's about right and wrong. It's not politics.
Is there more you could be doing to help those very people you talk about deal with gas prices right now, even though we don't have spikes that people are struggling to afford?
Well, I think you heard outstanding response from the Assembly member and the senator. They said it. I mean, you're all watching LA Times. The Dodgers struggling a little bit at the moment. This moment, I haven't checked in the last 10 the way they're playing. But you've heard me say this before, but it's the vernacular of the season. In this business, unlike baseball, you don't get credit for saves. And what I mean by that is the point they were making was the fact we haven't seen the price spikes that we've saw the last few years. And I think right now, to your question, we have seen the benefits of this. And there are hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that would have otherwise been extracted in the similar manner that it had previously been extracted in 22 and 23 had we not initiated this process. So I think in every respect, we have actually addressed the concern that you have expressed about, well, we want to address the pocketbook question now. I think we have been doing that.
Good afternoon, Alicia Machado with ABC 10. Governor, you answered my next question a little bit, but talk to me a little bit about the timeline and how soon that consumers might expect to see this legislation make a difference, even if we aren't, say, dealing with the price spikes that we might have seen at other points, if there is an anticipation for something coming up soon where we might be able to see this part of the legislation at play.
In the spirit of the prior question, as it relates to the seriousness of purpose that we place on the CEC and their rulemaking process, and as they move to do the analysis that was discussed briefly, not only in your frame of questions, but in the responses to those questions. We hope by next summer, as it relates to where we start to see these sort of traditional annual spikes, that this legislation will be in effect and impacting those prices in a very, very positive way. Thank you. And meanwhile, though, keeping a lid on all this all throughout. More information, more transparency. And by the way, and forgive me, I love WISPA out there asserting facts that are not in evidence. They don't even have the basic facts that the state of California has, which is just interesting in and of itself. I hope you all stress test that as it relates to some of their talking points.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you for taking all of our questions. Travis Gilmore with the Epoch Times. There was bipartisan concern expressed during the special session about the role that regulations do have on the price of gas. Do you share those concerns? And can we quantify how much in this $4.68 is regulation-based?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I've been pretty honest about, well, not pretty honest about this. I've been very supportive of being as transparent as possible with the taxpayers on what the LCFS may contribute, may not, what the cap and trade program may or may not contribute, what the California regulatory environment that goes back to 1967, a guy named Ronald Reagan, who I think right here, quite literally, talk about proximate, a few feet from me, was sworn in under the stars of some, well, there was a, anyway, that's Nancy Reagan. That's another conversation, the time that he got sworn in. But in the spirit of Reagan, that created our tailpipe emission standards and the codification under the Nixon administration in '70, under the Clean Air Act. California has established these rules to address the unique challenges, including the questions around this winter blend. Different people can disagree, but you're anywhere from $1, $1.30 of this I can understand and I can point to. When you start getting above that, that's the mystery. That's the spike. That's the concern. When you're 261, doesn't make any sense. 225 doesn't make any sense. You're around $1, that's in the margin of making some sense based upon California's unique status as it relates to what we've done on the gas tax. Of course, everyone's got one. And these other things. Now, I know folks behind me say it's a lot lower than that. I think Jamie's like, it's not even close to $1. How can the governor say that? But so But I'm just giving you an approximate of, of the different numbers that we see and assess that go back and forth. You're roughly within that bandwidth. Is that right, sir? That's my expert. Thank you. Thank you. And none of that's been increased lately. So, with the exception of the annual, which happens, again, under the CPI every year, under the gas tax. So, which is marginal compared to these spikes. Look, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for indulging us. Thank you for being back here. And to the extent we have to keep coming back, we'll keep coming back until we tame these abuses. But again, nothing satisfies me more than being able to, again, express publicly my gratitude to each and every one of you for a job well done. Thank you, all of you, for getting this done. Thank you.